The brothers hated her to the bone. When the girl leaped from the tall building, ending her brief 19 years, and woke up again, she had actually returned to the age of 14. Why did heaven make her go through this hellish life again? But the girl didn't know. Her inner thoughts were being heard word for word by her brothers at this moment. Late at night, the eldest brother, Fu Tingai, was working in his study, when he suddenly heard a female voice. Is the water in the bathtub deep enough? Or would glass be faster? He was so shocked he crushed his pen. It was actually the younger sister next door, Fu Anran. He broke through the door and saw a mess of bloodstains all over the floor. His gaze locked tightly onto her hand, covered in shards of glass and bloodstains. He grabbed Fu Anran's slender wrist and flung her violently onto the large bed behind him. His voice was so low, it was terrifying. Fu Anran, what kind of madness is this? Seeing her look of utter despair, he forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart, trying to regain his usual authority. Explain. What is going on here? The figure on the bed didn't move an inch, a cold laugh echoing incessantly in her heart. Explain why I want to die. Explain your 10 years of indifference and disgust. Explain how, after the car accident, you pinned the blame for our parents' death on me, a 4-year-old? How helpless and terrified I was. To you, murderers, what is there to say? Everything should end now. The wound on the wrist is still too shallow. Next time, it must be deeper. With a buzzing sound, Fu Tingai's mind went blank instantly. Car accident. Parents. Sin. 4 years old. These fragments of long-buried memories were brutally torn open by the voice in her heart. At her parents' funeral, a tiny her, dressed in a black dress, holding a torn rabbit doll, hiding behind the wreath, watching the four brothers with terrified and bewildered big eyes. Eldest brother Fu Tingai, forcing himself to hold on, his eyes cold and weary. Second brother Fu Zizhu was full of murderous aura, seeing her as an obstacle. Third brother Fu Jinian's smile was perfect, but utterly devoid of warmth. Fourth brother Fu Yongxiu locked his door tightly, shutting her out from him and the entire world. Who spoke first? It seemed to be second brother, Fu Zizhu. He coldly spat out the 3 words, jinx. If it weren't for her pestering to go to the amusement park, their parents wouldn't have changed routes and encountered the out-of-control truck. That thought henceforth became their best excuse for despising her. 10 years. They treated her as heir, as the family's disgrace, as a stain that should not exist, apart from ample material provisions. They were stingy in giving any warmth, leaving her to wither alone like a wild grass in this icy villa. Fu Tingai's tall figure suddenly swayed. So she knew everything. He opened his mouth, but was left speechless. Explanation. Questioning. What right did he have? Looking at that small figure on the bed, for the first time, he clearly saw her bottomless despair. With a loud clanging sound, the door was kicked open. A low, suppressed voice, filled with towering rage, came through. What happened? Second brother Fu Zizhu stood ghost-like at the door, expressionless. His gaze swept over the mess on the floor, skimmed over eldest brother's pale face, and finally fixed on the several fresh blood marks and glaring red marks on Fu Anran's wrist. Fu Tingai suddenly snapped back to reality. Meeting Fu Zizhu's cold, scrutinizing gaze, his throat felt blocked, losing its voice. Fu Anran curled up, motionless, as if isolated from the world. But that icy inner voice simultaneously rang in the minds of the 2 brothers. Second brother is here too. You're really quick. Are you afraid I didn't die completely? Did you come specifically to finish me off? Fine, then. Coming from a mercenary background, your methods must be cleaner and more efficient. Fu Zizhu's pupils abruptly contracted. This wasn't an auditory hallucination. He sharply looked towards his eldest brother. From the equally shocked and ashen face, he received the most terrifying confirmation. This voice was Fu Anran's. This realization exploded in his heart like a thunderclap. Finish me off. Mercenary. She actually saw him this way. He clenched his fists tightly. His knuckles cracked. The veins on the back of his hands bulged. The air in the room seemed to freeze into ice, leaving only the girl's faint breathing and the two men's heavy, oppressive heartbeats. Amidst this dead silence, a light-hearted and exaggerated humming grew closer and closer, completely tearing apart this suffocating stillness. Still talking about a party? So lively. Third brother Fu Jinian leaned against the doorframe, wearing his signature idol-like smile. But when his gaze swept over the room's disarray and his brother's livid faces, finally landing on Fu Anran's lifeless profile, the warmth in his eyes beneath the perfect smile instantly vanished. What's wrong with little Anran? Throwing a tantrum with your brothers? Fu Jinian strode closer with his long legs, his tone as intimately teasing as ever. A little kid like you. How unsightly to have a cut. Come. Let your third brother take a look. As he spoke, he naturally reached out his hand. But the moment his fingertips touched her skin, that world-weary inner voice exploded in the three brothers' minds once again. Third brother's acting is so good. It's all venom beneath the hypocritical sunshine. Want to see my hand? Are you afraid I've hidden razor blades or sleeping pills? Ha! How many sleeping pills would it take to die? 1 bottle or 2? Fu Jinian's outstretched hand suddenly froze mid-air. His perfect smile cracked for the first time. Hypocrisy. Venom. Sleeping pills. These words exploded in his mind. She clearly didn't open her mouth. Could this be Anran's inner thoughts? The eerie, cold inner voice instantly dropped the room's temperature to freezing point. At this moment, in the shadowy corner, a figure blended into the darkness, moved quietly. Fourth brother Fu Yongxiu had been standing there unnoticed. He looked down, intently staring at the tablet in his hand. But just as her inner thought about sleeping pills faded, his fingers, gripping the edge of the tablet, suddenly tightened. Fu Anran curled up on the bed. Her heart was completely lifeless inside. Fourth brother is here too. Can a top hacker find a painless way to die? Or where to get cyanide? As expected, jumping off a building is still the fastest, right? With a sharp cracking sound, the military-grade tablet in Fu Yongxi's hand actually cracked under his grip. Painless death, cyanide, jumping off a building. These suicide plans spoken from the heart of a 14-year-old girl. The impact is more than 100-fold. In the room, all 4 older brothers stood frozen on the spot. Fu Tingai staggered a step. His voice hoarse and broken, he pleaded. Anran, don't leave. Fu Tingai lay motionless. But in his heart, he was utterly bewildered. Don't leave. There's been no place for me in this family for a long time, hasn't there? What act of deep sibling affection are you performing now? Or have you thought up some new way to torment me? The numbness and confusion in her inner voice were even more chilling than her previous despair and sarcasm. She no longer believed any of their reactions, seeing them only as another form of torture. Fu Tingai opened his mouth, wanted to say it wasn't true. But 10 years of neglect and harm were ironclad evidence, making all his explanations seem pale and ridiculous. Get out. The words spat out by Fu Anran were icy and piercing, as if she were driving away a bunch of disgusting flies. All of you, get out. Her voice wasn't loud, but it struck heavily in the hearts of the 4 men. Yet not a single one moved. The air was left with only silent confrontation and deathly stillness. In the end, it was Fu Tingai who moved first. With extreme difficulty, he slowly withdrew the hand he had stretched toward her. He didn't look at her again. Instead, he turned to his 3 younger brothers, his voice raspy, but leaving no room for doubt. Zizhu, guard the door. Anran's condition is very bad. Don't let anyone come upstairs. Especially the servants. Jinian, Contact old Master Chen. Tell him to come immediately, no matter where he is. Whatever it takes. I need to see him right now. Fu Tingai took one last look at the figure curled up on the bed and retreated heavily. Only Fu Anran was left in the room. She slowly unclenched her tightly held right hand. A sharp triangular piece of glass lay in her palm. When Fu Jinian reached out earlier, she had instinctively hidden it in her hand. Next time. Need to find a quiet place. Until the night was deep as ink. Fu Anran, barefoot, walked towards the ensuite bathroom in the room. The sound of the bolt locking was especially piercing in the silence. Outside the door, Fu Zizhu, leaning against the cold wall. His tightly closed eyes suddenly snapped open. Inside the bathroom, Fu Anran stood in front of the sink. The broken mirror reflected her hollow eyes and disheveled black hair. She didn't look at the mirror, just lowered her head to stare at her palm. That sharp triangular piece of glass was lying there quietly. Fu Anran extended her left hand. Her fingertip gently traced the sharpest edge of the fragment. A slight sting came. A bright red bead of blood instantly seeped from her fingertip. It really is sharp. The cold thought pierced through the walls, striking the minds of the four men outside the door like a funeral bell. It should be quick to cut. Where is the artery? She slowly raised her left wrist. The blue blood vessels were clearly visible beneath her pale skin. The glass shard in her right hand pressed precisely against that blood vessel. Found it. This is the one. As long as she exerted force and sliced down, this time, no one would disturb her again. With a loud, rumbling crash, the sturdy bathroom door was violently kicked open. Fu Zizhu rushed in like a leopard. Downstairs, Fu Tingai, hearing the loud noise, sprang up abruptly. Stumbling, he dashed wildly upstairs. Fu Anran's movement did not stop. Just as the glass was about to slice down, a large hand clamped onto her wrist. The force was so great it almost crushed the bones. Her whole body was pulled backward by this immense force, heavily slamming against the cold tiled wall. A pained groan escaped her throat, not because of her wrist, but because of the impact on her back. Fu Zizhu's tall figure loomed over her, pinning her against the wall. His other hand also precisely seized her left wrist. He lowered his head, his icy gaze fixed on her face. His eyes churned with fury, lingering fear, and an unfamiliar storm. Let go. Her voice was hoarse and faint, carrying the annoyance and exhaustion of an interrupted plan. But her struggle was like an ant trying to shake a tree. Fu Zizhu's fingers instead tightened even more. He stared at the bleeding wound on her wrist and that face so numb, it could no longer feel pain. A nameless fury mixed with the bone-piercing chill shot straight to the crown of his head. What do you want to do? His voice was like a muffled thunder, each word squeezed out from between his teeth, carrying anger suppressed to the extreme, and a tremor he himself hadn't noticed. Fu Anran remained silent, but her icy inner voice, laden with scorn and exhaustion, smashed into the minds of all the brothers. Thinking what? She lifted her head. Her hollow eyes finally focused, directly clashing with his burning, furious gaze. In those depths, there was no fear, only a desolate, icy plain, and a weariness that penetrated to the bone. Fu Tingai's tall figure blocked the shattered doorway, his face iron green, chest heaving violently, watching his sister, pinned firmly against the wall, covered in defensive thorns. Fu Jinian stood behind the eldest brother. The pretense on his face completely collapsed, leaving only shock and suffocating oppression. For the first time, he clearly saw the wasteland in her eyes. And for the first time, he saw second brothers so out of control. A trace of absurdity flashed through Fu Anran's hollow eyes. What's wrong with them? Why have they all changed? Why suddenly care about a burden? This silent accusation, like ice picks, brutally stabbing into the hearts of everyone present. Fu Tingai's body swayed violently. The knuckles gripping the doorframe turned white from the force. Zizhu. His voice was hoarse and broken, carrying unprecedented pain. Enough. Let her go. You're hurting her. Fu Zizhu's chest heaved violently, his sharp eyes fixed intently on her. But ultimately, in that hoarse, enough, his hand gripping her wrist, loosened bit by bit, extremely slow and stiff. Fu Anran slid down the cold wall and sat on the floor, gasping for breath, her body trembling slightly from the impact and fear. Fu Zizhu slowly straightened up, took a step back. Fu Tingai took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing the surging emotions. He stepped over the mess, all over the floor, walked into the small bathroom, took off his expensive suit, stiffly crouched down, wanting to drape the jacket over her trembling shoulders. Fu Anran shrank back sharply, like a frightened young animal, subconsciously avoiding his touch, burying her face tightly into her knees, leaving him with a resistant and distant back. The soft cashmere coat now felt as heavy as 1,000 weights. Fu Tingai looked at the figure that rejected everything, his heart, as if gripped by a cold hand. Overwhelming powerlessness and regret 14 years too late instantly drowned him. At the doorway, Fu Jinian watched his eldest brother stiff back and his younger sister on the floor, his throat tight, unable to speak. His proud social skills now seemed incredibly pale and ridiculous, just in this suffocating, dead silence. The butler's urgent voice suddenly came from the intercom downstairs, piercing the solidified air. Eldest young master. The butler's voice trembled through the intercom. Eldest young master. The head of the C family. Mr. C has arrived. That name was like a thunderclap. Fu Tingai froze abruptly. The panic on his face was instantly replaced by coldness. He forcibly suppressed all emotions and immediately resumed the authority of the Fu Group's president. Take him to the reception room. I'll be right there. His voice was desperately steady, but that hint of hoarseness betrayed the tempest raging within him. Immediately after, Fu Zizhu rushed downstairs in a single stride. The deathly stillness on his face vanished in an instant, replaced by a flawless, brilliant smile. He even picked up the shards of porcelain from the floor and casually complained, "T-esque. What a pity for this antique porcelain set." However, the gravity in his eyes when he turned around had not dissipated at all. At the same time, Fu Jinian stood like an iron tower. He still stubbornly blocked the bathroom door. Hearing Si Yihan's name, his hawk-like eyes sharply scanned downstairs. Then, he stood even straighter, like an unsheathed blade, exuding a murderous aura that warned others to keep away. His task was singular: guard this place. And Fu Yongxiu was the quietest. He quickly switched the surveillance feed. The image of the front hall instantly popped up. Si Yihan. That man wore a dark gray overcoat. His posture was upright, standing with his hands clasped behind his back. The lines of his profile were cold and severe, carrying the aloofness of one long accustomed to power. Fourth brother's fingers flew across the keyboard. Several encrypted commands were instantly sent. The surveillance probe outside the villa quietly rotated, locking onto everything. The next second, the eldest brother had already composed his expression and strode swiftly downstairs. The entire villa instantly resumed its deliberate normality. The door to the reception room was pushed open. Si Yihan turned around. That handsome face was as if sculpted, but his phoenix eyes were sharp enough to pierce through one's heart. A perfect smile graced his lips, yet it held not a hint of warmth. "President Fu, disturbing you so late at night." The eldest brother took his seat at the head, his demeanor steady. "I didn't know Chairman C was visiting so late. What guidance do you have for us?" Third brother immediately smiled to smooth things over, attempting to lighten the atmosphere. "Brother C, you are a rare guest. It couldn't be that you've taken a liking to one of our projects, could it? Who would have thought?" Si Yihan elegantly took a seat, crossing his long legs. His aura was overpowering. He lifted his gaze, his eyes accurately looking towards the eldest brother. I wouldn't dare call it guidance. It's just that I heard the Fu Corporation's project in the west of the city has encountered some trouble. The hand with which the eldest brother held his teacup tightened almost imperceptibly. This project is an internal secret. How does he know about it? The eldest brother's expression remained unchanged. A minor issue. No need for Chairman Si to trouble himself. But Si Yihan raised an eyebrow slightly. Is that so? He shifted the topic. The tone carries a hint of sharpness. Business is like a battlefield. Having one more friend is always better than having one more enemy. These words are soft, yet firm. It's a gesture of goodwill, but also a form of pressure. Third brother was about to speak when he noticed Si Yihan's gaze seemingly drifting subtly toward the second floor. That direction was precisely where Fu Anran's room was located. Third brother's heart skipped a beat. He immediately began talking incessantly to steer the conversation away. Eldest brother also remained silent, his mind ringing with alarm bells. Si Yihan's visit was far too coincidental. What exactly did he know? But just at that moment, a cold, numb, and utterly despairing young girl's voice abruptly exploded directly in Si Yihan's mind. Quiet. Why can't it be quiet? So tired. I'm really so tired. Si Yihan's hand, holding the teacup, halted abruptly at his lips. This voice was clearly not coming from this room. Outwardly, he remained composed, perfectly maintaining the posture of a listener. But inwardly, a storm was already raging. Whose voice was this? The Fu family, Fu Anran, that rumored, unnoticeable, reclusive youngest daughter. Si Yihan instantly recalled. The Fu family indeed had a younger sister, only 14 years old this year. But the Fu brothers had never mentioned her in front of outsiders. Could it be? The voice in my mind just now was her inner voice. This realization was like a huge rock crashing into the heart's lake. He lifted his gaze again without a trace of expression, only to see the frequency of Fu Tingai tapping his cup quickened for an instant. Fu Ziju's smile also clearly became somewhat tense. Coupled with that god-like figure on the stairs, countless fragments of information rapidly pieced together in his mind. The Fu brothers were definitely up to something tonight. But just at this moment, it's him. Si Yihan. Why is he here? Fu Anran's inner voice exploded again. This time, it was no longer numbness, but fear and resistance like a frightened young beast. The trembling and sharpness in that voice were crystal clear. Si Yihan's fingers suddenly curled up. Fear. She fears him. Why? They haven't even met before. A sense of absurdity instantly swept through his heart. His face remained unruffled, but those hawk-like phoenix eyes were firmly locked onto Fu Tingai. Right at the moment the inner voice fell, Fu Tingai's complexion suddenly turned extremely ugly. His hand, holding the teacup, halted mid-air. His brows tightly knitted together. His gaze sharp as a blade, shot fiercely towards the stairs. The protective tension and hostility in that look, like guarding a young one, were so intense they almost materialized. Fu Ziju also instantly fell silent. The smile froze. Si Yihan took everything in. A thunderclap of shock exploded in his heart. Indeed, they had heard it too. This conclusion was unbelievable. Yet, not a trace of emotion showed on his face. Si Yihan set down his teacup, leaned back, like a hunter in complete control. His voice was colder than before, like an undercurrent beneath the ice. It seems, President Fu's home holds matters more worthy of attention than the project. His gaze accurately fell upon the second-floor staircase once more. That look seemed to pierce through everything, locking onto the source of that silent scream. Fu Tingai's heart sank violently. Si Yihan. He really knows. He forcefully suppressed his emotions. His voice was low, carrying an undeniable tone of dismissal. Chairman, see, you jest. It's merely a family matter. No need for your concern. Jiang Bo, see our guest out. Si Yihan slowly rose, his tall figure casting an invisible pressure. He took a deep look towards the staircase. The meaning in his gaze was unclear. Then, he turned and left with elegant strides. Only after the black car disappeared from sight did Fu Tingai abruptly turn around, his gaze shooting like an arrow towards the upstairs. Jinian, how is Zhao Ran? Fu Jinian's icy voice came through. No movement. Fu Yongxiu hurried upstairs, holding a computer. Emotional fluctuations are intense, but temporarily stable. He paused for a moment. Added, Si Yihan's car stopped outside the villa for a minute before leaving. At the same time, in the back seat of the black car, Si Yihan's eyes were closed, but a slight frown creased between his brows. That voice, full of fear, echoed repeatedly in his mind. Si Yihan, don't come near me anymore. Every word was like a brand. This was definitely not an auditory hallucination. The Fu brothers' reaction was the best proof. Why him of all people? Countless questions entangled his heart like vines. Si Yihan slowly opened his eyes. Only icy sharpness remained in his phoenix eyes. Fu Anran. This name, in an extremely bizarre way, for the first time, was branded deep into his consciousness. Inside the villa, the oppressive feeling brought by Si Yihan still lingered. Fu Tingai gazed out the window, his heart shrouded in dark clouds. Why would Zhao Ran fear a stranger? Could it be that Si Yihan really heard it too? This thought made him shudder. Just then, Fu Zizhu broke the silence. Eldest brother, Elder Chen has arrived. Fu Tingai immediately turned around. Yun Zhao, take Elder Chen upstairs. Jin Nian, guard the door. Well, second floor corridor, soft lighting. Old Chen, carrying a medical kit, taps lightly on the door. Zhao Ran, it's Grandpa Chen. May I come in? Silence from behind the door. Old Chen pushes the door open and enters. Sees a small figure curled up on the bed. He gently sits down by the bedside. Zhao Ran, you got quite a scare today, didn't you? Let Grandpa Chen take a look. The figure under the blanket shifts slightly. The tablet in Fu Yongxi's hand immediately pops up a notification. Motions gradually stabilizing. Old Chen continues softly. I know your heart feels like it's weighed down by dark clouds. It's the little monster of bad emotions acting up. But don't worry. It's most afraid of strawberry candy. As he speaks, he places a small bag of strawberry candy on the bedside. Outside the door, the Fu brothers listen quietly. Fu Tingai's hands are clenched tightly. Fu Zizhu's eyes are reddening. And on Fu Yongxi's tablet, notifications keep popping up. Emotional fluctuations decreasing. Old Chen stands up, looks at the few people outside the door. This child needs patience and companionship. Old Chen's words hit like a heavy hammer. Talk to her more. Bring her more things she likes. Fu Tingai suddenly turns his head. Voice hoarse, but extremely firm. Zizhu, go buy. Buy the snacks and toys Zhao Ran likes. But Fu Zizhu looks embarrassed. Eldest brother, Zhao Ran, what do you like? One sentence made everyone fall into dead silence. They actually didn't know what their younger sister liked. So the younger sister's illness was caused by their neglect over so many years, accumulated over time. Fu Tingai was full of self-blame. let out a soft sigh. Then let's buy some. Things that girls like? Fu Zizhu immediately nodded, quickly walked away, his retreating figure full of urgency. Fu Jinian's icy gaze swept towards the door. Should we call some bodyguards up? No need. Fu Tingai shook his head, staring fixedly at the door. What she needs now isn't defense. It's a sense of security. The few of us will take turns guarding. He immediately stepped forward, his voice extremely gentle. Zhao Ran, don't be afraid. Your brothers will always be right outside the door. But just at that moment, why? Shouldn't they be disgusted with her? The numb inner voice pierced into everyone's minds once again. Fu Tingai's fingertips instantly turned white. He almost broke the door down. But he froze. He was afraid of stimulating his younger sister. His voice trembled. Zhao Ran, if you feel unwell, just call out for brother. We won't leave even a single step. Inside the room, a dead silence. After a long time, there was finally movement under the blanket. A pale hand reached towards the strawberry candy on the bedside table. So, someone remembers he likes strawberry flavor. Outside the door, Fu Yongxiu spoke softly. She is watching. Everyone's hearts instantly leapt to their throats. They saw that hand trembling as it felt for the paper bag. On the bag was printed a cute son, holding a strawberry flavor. This is the candy Grandpa Chen gave. This thought carried a trace of imperceptible warmth. But Fu Zizhu could no longer hold back, gently pushed open the door. Zhao Ran. Fu Enran slowly looked up. Her hollow eyes flickered with astonishment. Fu Zizhu looked at her. His face showed an unprecedented panic. Zhao Ran. This candy. You can't eat too much. An extremely cold sneer escaped from Fu Anran's chapped lips. In her eyes was full of mockery and weariness. Do we have to act even at home? This thought was like a steel needle, stabbing fiercely into Fu Zizhu's mind. Click. A soft sound. Fu Anran actually opened the paper bag. Fu Jinian's body instantly tensed. Like a fully drawn bow, he stared at the thing in her hand. His voice unconsciously raised. Fu Anran, what are you doing? He almost shouted it out. Fu Anran's movements halted. She slowly looked up. In those hollow eyes was only the annoyance of having her plan interrupted. Fu Jinian. In his previous life, had he ever paid this much attention to her? Previous life. 2 words, like a sudden clap of thunder, stunned Fu Jinian into momentary silence. Seizing the moment when they were all shaken, Fu Anran's hand tightened again. Fu Jinian quickly stepped forward, snatched the paper bag from her hand. Fu Anran. Let it go. Her palm now empty. Fu Anran's eyes suddenly felt hot. She turned her face away. Biting her lower lip, she said, in a muffled voice. Hypocrites! What good people are you pretending to be now? Her voice, thick with a nasal tone, the grievance she could no longer hide. Fu Tingai strode forward, kneeled down beside her, like a steady wall, silently giving her a sense of security. Fu Zizhu cautiously handed her a handkerchief, his face full of worry and self-blame. Fu Yongxiu, meanwhile, quietly adjusted the room's lighting to be softer. Tears finally burst through the dam. Why did you all only care about her now? Years of pent-up grievance erupted explosively in this moment. The crying suddenly stopped. Emotionally drained, she was like a puppet with its strings cut. Fell backward abruptly. Fu Jinian reacted with astonishing speed, caught her limp body in his arms. That body was as light as a feather, yet carried a scorching heat. Zhao Ran. Fu Tingai rushed forward in a flash, his voice trembling. Fu Zizhu's face went completely pale. Fu Jinian's brows furrowed tightly. High fever. He scooped her up in his arms and quickly headed toward the bed. Fu Yongxiu rushed to the bedside. His fingers flew across the keyboard. 39.8 degrees. Heart rate too fast. Stress-induced fever. Fu Tinghai forced himself to calm down and immediately gave orders. Housekeeper. Ice packs. Warm water. Porridge. Contact old Chen. Jinian. Stay with her. The entire Fu family villa instantly plunged into tense chaos. The night passed. Fu Anran's fever finally subsided. But the 4 Fu brothers, none of them left. They kept watch all night. Every one of them exhausted. Till dawn's first light, Fu Anran woke, parched and dry. She strained to open her eyes and saw Fu Tinghai sitting right beside Thebe. Dark shadows set beneath his eyes. Stubble covered his jaw. Weariness weighed on him. Yet, Fu Anran's hollow eyes held no emotion. She closed them again. That tiny movement immediately startled Fu Tinghai. He snapped back to awareness, even knocked his chair over. Zhao Ran. You're awake. His voice was tight and hoarse. He reached out to feel her forehead. Do you want water? But Fu Anran only turned her head away, burying her face in the pillow, building a wall of ice in silence. He was completely ignored. Frustration and guilt. Like a tide, it drowned him. Immediately after, Fu Zizhu came in carrying breakfast. His face wore an impeccable, sunny smile. Zhao Ran, you're awake. Third brother specifically had the kitchen prepare congee for you. He naturally picked up the spoon, brought it to her lips. Come on, open your mouth. But just at that moment, so noisy, this heartfelt thought, full of weariness, caused Fu Zizhu's hand holding the spoon to instantly freeze. His smile developed a crack. He quickly adjusted, softened his voice to coax her. Be good, Zhao Ran. Don't be willful. Slap. The spoon was knocked flying fiercely. Bits of congee splattered on his expensive shirt. Get out. Fu Anran's voice was hoarse, yet icy and piercing. Fu Zizhu silently picked up the spoon, left with stiff steps. His retreating figure was wretched and forlorn. Lunchtime. Fu Yongxiu took a turn. He set the meal tray down, stood quietly to the side. Like a silent shadow, Fu Anran still had her eyes closed. A cold-hearted thought sounded again. Fu Yongxiu, huh? Still the same as ever. Watching with cold indifference. What's the point? Fu Yongxi's body instantly tensed up. He was silent for a long time, ultimately turned around silently, leaving the completely untouched food. By the afternoon, Fu Zizhu still hadn't given up. Zhao Ran. Go out for a walk. The roses in the garden have bloomed. Fu Anran leaned against the head of the bed. Her eyes were vacant. No reaction at all. Want to stay inside? Third brother will watch a movie with you. He's so annoying. 2 consecutive inner voices completely extinguished Fu Zizhu's subsequent efforts. The smile faded from his face, leaving only deep helplessness. Until evening, Fu Tinghai canceled all his meetings, personally carried a bowl of ginseng soup into the room. He did not try to persuade, just sat by the bed, looking at her pale, weak face, remained silent for a long time. He was no longer the high and mighty helmsman of the Fu family, just a clumsy and remorseful older brother. Zhao Ran. His voice was low and hoarse, carrying an unprecedented earnestness. With difficulty, uttered 3 words. I'm sorry. Fu Anran's body trembled violently. She shut her eyes tightly. Under her long eyelashes, tears silently fell. Fu Tinghai watched this scene. His heart ached almost to the point of shattering. Reached out to wipe her tears for her. But she suddenly turned her head away to avoid it. His eyes were full of self-reproach, turned and strode away, fled the room. After everyone left, The room was left with only her heavy panting. Immediately after dinner time, the Fu family dining room was deathly silent. Eldest brother Fu Tingai frowned deeply. Second brother Fu Ziju's face was deathly pale. Third brother Fu Jinian remained silent. And fourth brother Fu Yongxiu swept his gaze across the room, finally landing back on that empty seat, the seat that belonged to Fu Anran. Just at that moment, a very faint sound of footsteps was heard. Everyone jerked their heads up almost simultaneously. Fu Anran was standing at the door. She wore a loose nightgown, was barefoot, her eyes hollow and devoid of light, like a doll without a soul. Afterwards, she walked step by step, slowly towards that empty seat that belonged to her. Her appearance made the frozen air instantly shatter. In eldest brother Fu Tingai's eyes, there was unbelievable ecstasy. Second brother Fu Ziju even abruptly sat up straight, a flush of excitement rising on his pale face. Zhao Ran, eldest brother, was the first to speak, his voice hoarse, trying hard to keep his tone gentle. Quickly, bring the soup up. Make sure it's hot. Second brother immediately chimed in. His face was arranged into a carefully flattering smile. Yes. First, drink some hot soup to warm your stomach. Steaming hot cream of mushroom soup was carefully placed in front of Fu Anran. However, she just lowered her gaze to stare at the tableware, her fingertips unconsciously rubbing the rim of the cup. Fragments. Seeing his younger sister's paper-pale complexion, Fu Tingai's heart sank. He slowly reached out and grasped her wrist. Who would have thought this action would completely ignite her? She abruptly raised her head, her eyes filled with violent rage. Get away! A faint, hoarse roar. She suddenly stood up, overturning the chair behind her. The porcelain bowl fell to the ground, shattering instantly. Immediately after, she felt a wave of dizziness. Her body went limp and she collapsed. Eldest brother stepped forward swiftly, catching her in his arms. But third brother Fu Jinian's voice was cold and hard as iron. Get the car ready. To the hospital. Before his words faded, he had already scooped Fu Anran up into his arms and strode swiftly out of the restaurant. Hospital corridor. Eldest brother Fu Tingai paced anxiously like a caged animal. Time stretched out infinitely. After what seemed like an eternity, the hospital room door finally pushed open. The doctor removed his mask. It was just a minor impact. It's been treated. At this moment, third brother broke down sobbing on the spot. Eldest brother leaned against the wall to steady himself. He walked to the bedside, looked at his unconscious younger sister. His anxious heart finally settled. But the doctor's next words instantly made them feel as if they had fallen into an icy abyss. However, the doctor's tone suddenly turned grave. His gaze swept over the four of us. He emphasized with heavy emphasis, I suspect she is mentally unstable. She needs to be examined by a psychiatrist. These words were like a heavy hammer, smashed violently onto our hearts. In the hospital room, only the cold, beeping sound of the ECG monitor remained, and Fu Anran's sleeping brow was still tightly furrowed. She didn't know how much time had passed. She struggled to open her eyes, her gaze focused on the stark white ceiling. She tried to move, but her body felt as if filled with lead. Immediately after, she sensed something unusual. At her wrist came a feeling of being wrapped, a sense of restraint. She abruptly looked down. On her left wrist was startlingly wrapped a cotton restraint strap. She was restricted. A low growl, like that of an injured small animal, was forced from her throat. The next second, she frantically twisted her wrist. The soft strap instantly cut into her skin. Let go of me. A hoarse scream tore through the deathly silence of the hospital room. Within that sound was overwhelming fury and bone-deep humiliation. Why are you doing this to me? Let go. Zhao ran. Don't move. Third brother was the first to rush to the bedside. His voice choked with tears, trying to hold her down. But she weakly turned her head away, her voice trembling. Don't touch me. The resentment and rejection in her eyes struck third brother like a thunderbolt. He subconsciously stepped back. Zhao ran. Calm down. Eldest brother also rushed to the bedside, his voice hoarse, reaching out to try and restrain her. However, Fu Enran shrank back violently, her back pressed against the headboard, crying out, "Don't touch me." That sharp accusation, like a heavy hammer, smashed hard onto eldest brother's heart. His movements instantly froze, his outstretched hand halted mid-air. At that moment, the rock-like figure by the window moved. It was second brother, Fu Zizhu. He moved like lightning, grabbing the area above Fu Anran's restrained left wrist. Then, using his thumb and index finger, he precisely pressed on an acupressure point. Ah! An intense, numbing soreness instantly shot up her entire arm. Her frantically pulling hand instantly lost all strength. Limply falling down, she looked up. Eyes brimming with tears stared fixedly at Fu Yongxiu. "It's you again, Fu Yongxiu." The second brother clearly heard the overwhelming hatred in her voice. The storm in his icy eyes suddenly intensified. At that moment, doctors and nurses rushed in. "Prepare the sedative immediately." When the medication took effect, Fu Anran went powerless on the hospital bed. Tears silently slid down. The second brother slowly loosened his fingers. He actually pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, carefully wiped away the tear stains on her cheek. The eldest brother walked to the bedside, untied the restraints, gently held her reddened wrist, and said in a low voice, "Zhao Ran, your brother is here." The icy cold medication shattered the last bit of her struggling strength. The resentment and madness burning in her eyes, like a flame suddenly extinguished. The madness in her eyes died out, leaving only a deathly stillness. Her body no longer resisted, sinking limply into the bed. Only her chest heaved violently, accompanied by painful gasps. The three brothers stood like statues, frozen in silent stillness by the bedside. And the third brother, Fu Jinian, had long since retreated back into the shadows by the window. Till the nurse left, the room door clicked with a soft sound. The next second, the third brother, Fu Jinian, completely broke down. He staggered and fell into a chair, covered his face with his hands. Muffled sobs escaped through his fingers. "The look she just gave me," she said. "We are the ones who hurt her." His voice was broken, carrying a heavy sob. "Have we really been hurting her all along?" This sentence was like a blunt weapon, smashing hard onto everyone's heart. The eldest brother, Fu Tinghai, turned around abruptly, his bloodshot eyes fixed on the third brother. "You shut up." He took a step forward, the knuckles of his clenched fists turning white. Who was it that turned a blind eye to her back then? Who was it that didn't even know what color she liked? Every single question was both hurled at the eldest brother, and even more so, hurled at himself. But the third brother, having been hit where it hurt, jerked his head up and roared, "Yes, I'm a scumbag. Then what about you, eldest brother?" He pointed at eldest brother. His voice was sharp. "Do you remember her birthday? Do you remember her first day of junior high school? Who took her there? Was it you? Was it us? It was Jiang Bo. It was the servant." Enough. An icy, extreme low shout suddenly exploded. Second brother Fu Zizhu by the window turned around abruptly. He rushed between the two of them in a few steps, one hand on each, gripping their lapels tightly. "If you want to argue, get out." His voice was deep and cold as frigid iron. His gaze was like an ice pick. "Arguing here? Do you want to wake her up again?" The two of them were as if doused with ice water, frozen instantly. Overwhelming shame instantly crushed all their anger. Only then did second brother slowly release his grip. His gaze returned to the hospital bed. His voice decisive. Arguing solves nothing. As long as she is still here, there is a future. After speaking, he walked back to the window. Like a silent barrier, the ward fell into dead silence again. Heavier than before. In the corner, fourth brother Fu Yongxiu was curled up on a chair, his entire body trembling. And eldest brother was slumped against the cold wall. 10 years. That little girl who held a doll at 4 years old. That younger sister who was forgotten in the corner. Growing up silently. That girl who now only wishes for death. Finally, all images froze on her gaze, filled with humiliation and hatred, and excruciating pain and regret that had come far too late. Like a torrent, instantly submerged him. His tall frame swayed. He squatted down, extremely slowly. The next second, he buried his face deep into his palms. From between his fingers spilled sobs suppressed to the extreme. Third brother could no longer hold on. He weakly slid down to sit on the ground. He buried his head deep into his knees. His shoulders shook violently. The suppressed crying could no longer be restrained. "I'm sorry, little sister. I'm sorry." The broken sobs were filled with humble, aching pain. Third brother was wrong. Truly wrong. And at this very moment, in the corner, Fu Yongxiu trembled even more violently. He bit his lower lip hard, quietly unlocked his phone. The eerie blue light illuminated his pale, small face. The next second, he actually directly hacked into the hospital's internal system. Cold data scrolled before his eyes. He only wanted to find a sliver of hope. As if only in this way could he escape this suffocating guilt. At the same time, by the window, Fu Ziju's back was straight as a javelin. His sharp gaze swept over every corner downstairs, again and again. Little sister's fear of outside the window in her dreams. He remembered it clearly. Any potential danger must be nipped in the bud. The entire hospital room was thus shrouded in pain and regret until the first light of dawn barely pierced through the curtains. The person on the sickbed's eyelashes trembled slightly. She slowly opened her eyelids. The pungent smell of disinfectant made her subconsciously move her wrist. Then she suddenly discovered the restraints on her hands had actually disappeared, replaced by clean gauze. This discovery left her somewhat stunned. But the next second, third brother immediately leaned forward, his voice both nervous and ingratiating. "Zhao Ran, you're awake. Do you want some water?" He fumbled to hand her the water cup, but she just swept a hollow glance, then resolutely turned her head away. Third brother's smile instantly froze on his face. Eldest brother slowly stood up, his tall figure exceptionally weary. He walked to the bedside, opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. In the end, he just put on his coat, voice hoarse. Something came up at the company. "I must go." Yet his gaze remained locked intently on his younger sister. "You all guard her well." These few words actually carried a trace of pleading. After eldest brother left, the hospital room fell into dead silence again. Third brother racked his brains and spoke dryly. "Zhao Ran, outside, the sky has lightened." But she showed no reaction, as if she hadn't heard at all. There was only one thought in her heart. Daybreak, nightfall, what difference does it make? My world has always been only darkness. The deathly stillness in her heart made third brother completely despondent. Just at that moment, fourth brother Fu Yongxiu, holding a computer, walked over silently. His hat brim was pulled very low. His glasses reflected the eerie light from the screen. The next second, he held the computer screen before his younger sister's eyes. On the screen was unmistakably an old photograph. The background of the photo was a brightly sunlit amusement park. A little girl in a pink dress with pigtails, smiling, her eyes curved into crescents. In her arms, she tightly held an old rabbit doll, and beside her squatted a big boy of about 8 or 9 years old. The boy had a brilliant smile, flashing a big V sign at the camera. Those peach blossom eyes were filled with unreserved doting for his younger sister. That boy who smiled like a little son was actually third brother, and that carefree little girl was herself. Below the photo, there was also a line of crooked, scrawled words. Zhao Ran's first time at the amusement park, with her most favorite third brother. Happy. With just one glance, third brother was as if struck by lightning. His eyes snapped wide open, staring at the screen in disbelief. That was when my parents were still alive. It was him. When his eyes weren't yet clouded by hatred. It was him. When he still cherished his younger sister like a precious treasure. Overwhelming regret and sorrow instantly crushed him. He abruptly covered his mouth. Only then did he prevent the sob from bursting out. The clean smiling version of himself in the photograph, and her pale form on the hospital bed. The stark contrast was like the sharpest blade, savagely gouging his heart. Third brother, her icy, numb inner voice, for the first time, experienced a violent fluctuation. The floodgates of sealed memories were violently smashed open. The sweetness of cotton candy, the music of the carousel, and that boy who would lift her high up, surged forth like a tidal wave. Zhao Ran, third brother's voice was choked with sobs. It's third brother's fault. These words instantly made her eyes rim red. Tears rolled down uncontrollably. Her shoulders shook uncontrollably. Fu Jinian was utterly panicked, wanted to wipe her tears, but didn't dare to get closer. But the next second, get away. She shoved third brother away violently, her bloodshot eyes full of madness and resistance. You are not him. You are not. My third brother has long ceased to exist. Ceased to exist. 4 words, smashed onto Fu Jinian's heart like a heavy hammer. He staggered back. His legs gave way. He actually slid down the wall and sat on the ground. He covered his face tightly, letting out a suppressed, extreme wail. At this moment, Fu Zizhu suddenly made his move. He accurately used his fingers to press on the acupoint on the inner side of her arm. An intense, numbing soreness instantly swept through her entire arm. Her body instantly lost most of its strength. Fu Zizhu. Why is it always you? I hate you. The most vicious curse from the bottom of her heart, stabbed like a sharp knife towards second brother. But Fu Zizhu's finger pressing the acupoint even increased its force slightly. Just at this moment, Fu Jinian abruptly climbed up from the ground. Call the doctor, quick. He screamed hoarsely towards the door, his voice completely distorted. Doctors and nurses rushed in again. Prepare a sedative immediately. The cold liquid was injected. Her last bit of strength was drained away. Pain and resentment receded like the tide, leaving only endless exhaustion. Seeing his younger sister fall unconscious again, third brother completely broke down. He used all his strength to viciously pound on his own chest. Thump. Dull, heavy blows, each punch filled with despair. It's me. I hurt her. I destroyed the third brother that Zhaoren liked the most. While frantically harming himself, he let out heart-rending, lung-tearing howls. Within that sound was full of an unbearable sense of sin. Fu Yongxiu retreated to the corner, burying his face deep into his hat brim, while Fu Zizhu just watched coldly. Only now did he finally speak. Enough. Jinian. A stern, cold roar made third brother shudder all over. Even if you beat yourself to death right now, what use would it be? Can it make her better? Can it make her forgive you? Second brother's icy questioning. Each word pierced the heart. Third brother lifted his red, swollen eyes, looking at him blankly. What should I do? Second brother, what should I do? His voice was broken, full of despair. Shut up. Fu Zizhu sharply interrupted, the veins on his temples bulging and throbbing. Get out. Now. Immediately. Calm down. Don't be here. Stimulating her further, Fu Jinian shouted into a state of desolation, as if his bones had been removed. Staggered out of the hospital room. Inside the hospital room, fourth brother still trembled like a leaf in the corner. But second brother no longer looked at him. His icy gaze precisely fell on his younger sister's neck. That piece of gauze was actually stained red with blood again. He walked to the bedside in a few steps, said to the doctor in a deep voice, "The sedative dosage. Adjust it." His voice devoid of any fluctuation, yet brooking no argument. The doctor was taken aback, but still quickly adjusted the drug concentration. As higher concentrations of the drug were injected, she completely sank into boundless darkness. Her breathing gradually steadied. Her tears slowly stopped. She was like a doll emptied of its soul, lifeless. At the same time, top floor of the Fu Corporation, eldest brother Fu Tingai leaned warily against the chairback, rubbing his throbbing temples, thinking of his younger sister on the sickbed. A wave of belated agony and remorse almost crushed his spine. He was wrong. They were all wrong. Wrong beyond belief. Wrong, irredeemably. It was every single one of them who personally pushed that smiling younger sister into the endless darkness. In the end, it was with a full decade of neglect and aversion that they completely destroyed her. Inside the hospital room, the silence was terrifying. Until eldest brother Fu Tingai pushed the door open and entered. Yet the moment he stepped into the room, he sensed something was wrong. His younger sister on the bed was unusually quiet. Fu Jinian by the side held his head without speaking. And Fu Yongxiu in the corner was curled up into a ball. His heart tightened. He immediately demanded, "What happened? How is Zhao Ran?" Fu Zizhu turned coldly and uttered a shocking sentence. "I told the doctor to increase the sedative dosage." "What? Increase the dosage?" Eldest brother instantly understood. Something must have happened. He pressed again. What exactly happened? This time, big brother's gaze shot directly towards Fu Yongxiu. A domineering look, full of command. Fourth brother instinctively shuddered, but still carried the computer and walked over to big brother. However, when the screen lit up, big brother's pupils abruptly constricted. What appeared on it was actually no longer that photo, but rather surveillance footage from the Fu family villa over the past several years. Scene 1. A small her, holding a rabbit, sitting alone by the door. From dusk until late at night. Scene 2. She had a high fever that wouldn't break, whimpering in discomfort, but there was no one by her side. Scene 3. She timidly offered a birthday card, but big brother didn't even glance at it and walked straight past. Scene 4. She held a report card showing she was first in her grade, but couldn't find a single brother willing to share it with. Scene after scene, year after year, these forgotten icy images were now laid out bloodily before their eyes. Every single scene was evidence of their own hands pushing their younger sister towards the abyss. Big brother stared fixedly at the screen, his breathing growing heavier and heavier. His heart felt as if it were being torn apart by a hand, over and over. Belated remorse engulfed him like a tsunami. The next second, he suddenly raised his hand and slammed his fist hard against the wall. Bang! A loud noise. His knuckles instantly broke skin, blood flowing freely. Yet he remained completely unaware, squeezing hoarse words through gritted teeth. Beasts. We really are fucking beasts. This man who dominated the business world was now completely crushed by guilt. Fourth brother silently closed the laptop shrinking back into the corner. And Big Brother's gaze, from the small figure on the screen, fell back onto the face of his younger sister on the hospital bed, his eyes growing increasingly profound. Not long after, Big Brother dragged his hollowed-out body out of the hospital room. He needed some air. That suffocating despair was nearly driving him insane. But just as he stepped out of the elevator lobby and prepared to go to the garden, President Fu, a deep, magnetic voice, sounded from his side. Fu Tingai's steps halted abruptly. Alarm bells blared in his heart. He turned sharply, his sharp gaze instantly locking onto the newcomer, Si Yihan. The brothers hated her to the bone. When the girl leaped from the tall building, ending her brief 19 years, waking up again, she had actually returned to the year she was 14. Why did heaven make her experience this hellish life again? But the girl didn't know. Her inner thoughts were being heard word for word by her brothers at this very moment. Continuing from the previous episode, President Fu. A voice like cold jade sounded from his side. Fu Tingai's steps halted abruptly. Alarm bells blared in his heart. He turned sharply, his hawk-like gaze instantly locked onto the newcomer, Si Yihan. He was wearing a perfectly tailored cashmere coat. His posture was tall, straight, and dignified. Those deep, phoenix-like eyes were precisely fixed on the glaring bloodstain on his sleeve. Fu Tingai forcefully suppressed the vigilance in his heart. His voice was hoarse and icy. Chairman Si. What a coincidence. He deliberately emphasized the word coincidence. His eyes filled with undisguised wariness. But Si Yihan seemed completely unaware. The curve at the corner of his lips remained unchanged. Just a routine inspection. His gaze swept, seemingly unintentionally, over that bloodstain. His tone was steady. But President Fu, you don't look too well. Fu Tingai's eyes instantly sharpened like knives. No need for your concern, Chairman Si. Tension stretched taut between the two men. The air almost solidified. Just then, the encrypted phone in Fu Tingai's pocket suddenly emitted a sharp, buzzing alarm. It was the highest-level alarm from his sister's hospital room. Something had happened. Fu Tingai's face changed drastically. Overwhelming panic instantly seized him. He didn't even have time to say another word. He whipped around. Like an out-of-control beast, he frantically charged towards the elevator. The earlier toughness and authority vanished completely in that instant. However, Si Yihan just stood in place. He watched Fu Tingai's panicked, fleeing figure. The curve at the corner of his lips slowly faded, ultimately transformed into a piece of icy indifference. In the deep phoenix eyes, the interest of inquiry grew even more intense, because just a moment ago, he had once again caught a trace of extreme, heart-wrenching pain. Immediately after, he did not leave. Instead, he strode out with his long legs, unhurriedly walking toward the VIP elevator. With his slender fingers, he pressed the top floor button without hesitation. At the same time, the top floor VIP ward area was already a scene of oppressive chaos. Fu Tingai rushed back into the corridor and saw a sight that shattered his heart and guts. Doctors and nurses looked grave, frantically rushing in and out of his sister's room. Fu Jinian was slumped like mud. Fu Yongxiu was curled up and trembling. Only the second brother, Fu Zizhu, stood like a blood-stained long spear, nailed firmly at the entrance of the ward. The ferocity around him almost froze the air. Fu Tingai's heart was instantly gripped tight. He roared and rushed to the door, panic nearly bursting from his throat. What did he end up hearing? Heart rate plummeting. Breathing ceased. Emergency resuscitation in progress. Fu Tingai's vision went black. Overwhelming terror instantly drowned him. Time dragged on in suffocating agony. Finally, the ward door opened. The doctor announced warily, "She's temporarily stabilized." However, his next words were like a bucket of ice water, completely dousing all hope. The psychological trauma far exceeds initial estimates. Require specific olfactory information to evoke a sense of safety. A specific scent. At that very moment, Fu Yongxiu suddenly remembered a piece of surveillance footage buried for 10 years. Cedarwood. It was the scent of his mother. Hope was rekindled. But then, an assistant's phone call instantly plunged them into the abyss. Pure cedarwood essential oil that met the standard would take at least 2 days to obtain. 2 days. Zhao Ren simply couldn't wait that long. Amidst this despairing, dead silence, perhaps I can be of some small assistance. That cold, jade-like voice sounded once more. Everyone turned their heads abruptly. Si Yihan, he had appeared at some unknown time. Silently. A perfect yet distant smile gracing his face. Immediately after, under the stunned and wary gazes of everyone, his right hand slowly withdrew from his overcoat pocket. Between his fingers dangled a dark brown roll-on bottle. Then, he met Fu Tingai's murderous gaze. His thin lips parted slightly. Cedarwood essential oil. Those 4 words echoed like a sudden clap of thunder. Why was Si Yihan here? How did he possess this priceless, near unobtainable item? This was absolutely no coincidence. Fu Tingai spoke through gritted teeth. Si Yihan. You. However, Si Yihan directly cut him off, shifting his gaze to the doctor. Saving a life is the priority. This bottle of essential oil, sourced from the primitive cedar forests of Nepal, extracted by hand using ancient methods. Annual production is less than 10 liters. His tone was casual, yet every word was startling. I myself occasionally use it to aid sleep. The doctor's instinct overrode everything. He stepped forward quickly, took that small bottle, unscrewed the cap. A clear, sharp, and austere woody aroma instantly permeated the air. Pure, without a trace of impurity, like the crisp air atop a high mountain. Dr. Chen quickly tested it with an instrument. His face instantly burst with ecstasy. Extremely high purity, natural composition, completely meets medical standards. He looked excitedly at Fu Tingai. President Fu, this is truly a godsend. Fu Tingai's fists were clenched tightly. On one side, his sister's life hanging by a thread. On the other side, was this dangerous man with unclear motives. How to choose? Time passed in the standoff. Every second could push his sister closer to the abyss. Finally, Fu Tingai forced out a few words through gritted teeth. I must trouble Director C. He chose his sister, even if this was poison coated in honey. Si Yihan's smile did not change in the slightest. He handed the small bottle to the doctor, turned and walked to the window, his back to the hospital room, as if merely admiring the scenery. However, his ear was slightly tilted toward the hospital room, but it revealed his true purpose. Inside the hospital room, the doctor dripped a drop of cedar essential oil into the humidifier. The crisp fragrance instantly filled the entire space. The next second, a miracle happened. On the hospital bed, Fu Anran's tightly furrowed brows actually visibly relaxed. Her rapid breathing gradually became long and steady. Her fingertips, which had been trembling constantly, finally stilled. Fu Tingai saw the scene through the observation window. His tall body swayed violently. Fu Jinian covered his face, letting out the agony of having narrowly escaped death. However, just as Fu Anran completely relaxed in that moment, a childish, blood-stained inner voice, like a trapped beast breaking free from its cage, clearly flooded into everyone's minds. Mom, Dad, I'm not a jinx. Jinx. The moment these 3 words appeared, everyone's bodies shook violently. The cold funeral hall. A small, weak figure was pushed to the ground. You jinx. Why wasn't it you who died? Each word pierced the heart. Immediately after, another inner voice came through. Bunny. Zhao Ran's body feels so bad. Why doesn't Big Brother believe me? Bunny. It hurts. Fu Tingai's body trembled violently. Once, the little girl, holding a rabbit doll, tiptoed into the study. Get out. Can't you see I'm working? Feeling unwell? Look for me. I'm not a doctor. Next heartfelt thought. Second brother. My report card. Fu Ziju's body trembled. That perfect score report card he casually tore up. The girl's despondent expression, like a sharp knife piercing through his heart. Immediately after. Third brother. The standee I specially made for you. Is it nice? Fu Jinian suddenly knelt on the ground, clutching his head and weeping bitterly. Stay away from me. Such bad luck. His past words. Now each one cut like a blade. Finally, fourth brother. Fu Yongxi's nerves were stretched taut. But there was actually nothing. Only two simple words. He, as the fourth brother, actually had not a single memory with his younger sister. Overwhelming self-reproach drowned every person. See Yihan. Those deep phoenix eyes held a trace of shock for the first time. So that's how it is. Car accident. 10 years of neglect, viewed as a jinx by her closest family. No wonder she wholeheartedly sought death. This Fu family, to her, was a living hell. A wave of icy anger quietly grew within his heart. For this innocent soul, pushed into the abyss by their own hands. He slowly turned around. His gaze once again fell upon the hospital room door. In his eyes, there was actually an additional trace of a protective desire that even he himself hadn't noticed. Afterwards, his thin lips were pressed tightly together. He strode out with his long legs and left without a sound. That departing figure actually carried a hint more of heaviness, and a dangerous heart-peeper had already changed sides. However, the effects of the drug had long since faded. Fu Anran opened her eyes, her gaze fixed directly on the ceiling. In the attic. That thing should still be there, right? Go back. I must go back. The clear, inner voice instantly pierced through the walls. Fu Tingai's phone call abruptly ended. His face instantly turned ashen. Fu Jinian's script clattered with a sound as it fell to the ground. Go back. What does she want to go back and do? In the corner, Fu Yongxi's fingers hovered over the keyboard. His jawline instantly tightened. Attic. His fingers frantically typed. A 3D structural diagram of the villa instantly appeared. Countless surveillance, red dots lit up. The next second, streams of encrypted commands were silently issued. The access permissions for all the villa's smart locks on doors and windows were instantly reset. The highest level of biometric encryption. Security patrol frequency instantly doubled. All sharp objects, ropes, medications were ray-checked. A net of heaven and earth woven from data rapidly took shape at his fingertips. At this very moment, Fu Ziju, who had been facing away from the room, slowly turned around. And Fu Anran also slowly looked towards Fu Tingai. Discharged from the hospital, her voice was faint, yet it brooked no doubt. Fu Tingai's heart was tangled. If he didn't agree, he feared she would become even more despondent. But if he agreed, could her body handle it? He thought it over again and again. Finally made a decision. Big Brother will go handle the discharge now. I'll take you home. Who would have thought? Upon getting the answer, Fu Anran immediately averted her gaze. Home. Can that still be considered my place to return to? Forget it. I must go back. Need to go check the attic. In the very back of the attic's east side. Behind the loose wall brick. Last time I was locked in for 4 days. I couldn't get it. But this time, I must get it. Attic. Wall. Brick. Locked in for 4 days. Every single word smashed hard onto the hearts of the Fu brothers. Fu Tingai's eyes were filled with self-blame and fury. She was locked in for 4 days? Why didn't he know? Fu Jinian's eyes widened even more. His younger sister was locked in that cluttered attic for 4 days? Who dared? The next second, Fu Yongxiu tapped on the keyboard, staring fixedly at the attic model on the screen. In Fu Ziju's eyes, a raging inferno erupted. Right under his nose, the aura around him instantly dropped to freezing point. His figure flickered, and he directly vanished from the hospital. However, inside the hospital room, Fu Anran's inner voice continues. Previous life. I disagreed to the marriage alliance with the C family, so they locked me in the attic. For 4 whole days. The long darkness, that nightmare. Why must I be brought back here again? Marriage, alliance, previous life. Fu Tingai only felt a chill rush from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Immense shock overwhelmed him. How is this possible? Marriage alliance with the C family. Locked her in the attic. Who did it? Wait. Her inner voice said. Previous life. An absurd thought. Like lightning striking into his mind. Could it be? She has been reborn. Just at this moment, Fu Anran's inner voice sounds again. Like a whisper from hell. Behind the brick. Hidden among Dad's old things. A razor. I hope it's still there. Discovered it last time I was locked in. Originally planned to use it. Haven't used it yet. Must get it this time. Razor. An intense sense of foreboding makes Fu Tingai stand up abruptly. He pulls open the hospital room door. Outside the door, Fu Jinian, eyes red, is trying to charge in. Fu Tingai grabs him firmly. Where is Ziju? Fu Yongxiu, holding a computer, looks up. Second brother went back. He said he would handle it. Good. Fu Tingai understands in his heart. You two, keep a good watch on her. I'm going to handle the discharge procedures. At the same time, Fu family villa. Attic. Fu Ziju's figure appeared like a ghost. His gaze swept precisely over the wall, instantly locking onto a loose wall brick. He didn't hesitate at all. His hand, wearing tactical gloves, reached out abruptly. His fingertips precisely hooked into the brick gap. Applied steady force, skillfully prized it. A light click sound. That wall brick was easily removed by him. Behind the wall brick was a dark hollow space. Inside actually lay a cloth bundle, already covered in thick dust. But the moment the bundle was opened, time seemed to stand still. His fingers gripping the wall brick turned white at the knuckles from excessive force. What exactly had they done to his sister to make her hide something like this in the attic? At such a young age, belated remorse, overwhelming fear, like cold magma, instantly engulfed him. Because of this, he suddenly clenched his palm tightly. The hard edges cut his palm, causing pain. But it was far less than 1/10,000th of the pain in his heart. Immediately after, he slowly retreated from the attic. Standing under the dim light, he opened his palm. The object in his palm was emitting waves of cold light. The icy touch carried a bone-piercing chill. He stood silently like this for a long time. Finally, he took out the encrypted communicator. His voice was hoarse, yet carried a cold determination. He sent a message to Fu Yongxiu and Fu Tingai. Target located. Elimination complete. Message sent. His gaze was extremely complex. Afterwards, he turned and left. His steps were heavy, yet also extremely resolute. The shadows behind him seemed as if they would devour all light. Her brothers hated her to the bone. When the girl leaped from the tall building, ending her brief 19 years, waking up again, she had actually returned to the year she was 14. Why did heaven make her experience this hellish life again? But the girl didn't know. Her inner thoughts were being heard word for word by her brothers at this very moment. Continuing from the previous episode, the discharge process was like a silent ritual. Dr. Chen repeatedly checked and confirmed that Fu Anran's neck wound had healed well. Her physiological indicators were stable. Only under Fu Tingai's gaze, heavy as a mountain, did he reluctantly sign the papers. Fu Jinian busied himself back and forth, packing the already few belongings. His movements carried a deliberate sense of ingratiation and a cautious avoidance. His gaze never dared to meet Fu Anran's hollow eyes. Fu Yongxiu pulled his hat brim even lower, as if trying to completely hide himself behind the barrier of the digital world. Fu Zizhu, the most silent shadow, had already left one step ahead to clean that home filled with ominous premonitions. The black limousine smoothly drove into the cold, ornate wrought iron gate of the Fu family villa. Fu Anran leaned against the car window, her gaze indifferently fixed outside. The twilight cast a false, warm golden hue over the massive structure, yet it could not dispel the inherent severity and oppression. "I'm back." Fu Anran's inner voice, like a proclamation, clearly transmitted into the minds of the three other men in the car. The car stopped. The door was gently opened by the butler. The moment she stepped into the foyer, a subtle yet undeniable change quietly enveloped Fu Anran. There were more people, not referring to the servants, but unfamiliar men in uniform, black attire, standing tall with cold, stern expressions. They were like sculptures melded into the shadows, silently stationed in every corner, untouched by the giant crystal chandelier's light. At the turn of the spiral staircase, in the shadows of the archway leading to the dining room, even on the terrace beyond the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, their rock-solid figures could be seen, vigilantly scanning every part of the space. Fu Anran's eyes swept over these unfamiliar figures. Without pause, and without a ripple, she walked straight toward the staircase leading to her room. Her steps were unsteady yet carried a certain inertia. The attic. Better go in the evening. Fu Tingai's heart sank abruptly. He forced himself to remain calm, instructed the butler, "Jiang Bo. Dinner. Deliver it to the young lady's room." His voice carried a barely noticeable tension. Dinner was delivered quickly. The tray was placed on the small coffee table in Fu Anran's room. On the tray, there were no gleaming silver knives and forks, no bone china cups and plates. Instead, there were thick, dull-colored dark plastic bowls and plates, a blunt-edged plastic spoon, and an equally shatter-proof water cup made of the same material. Even the container for the soup was a highly insulated double-layered stainless steel thermal jar. After finishing her meal, Fu Anran walked to the window, pulled the heavy curtains shut. Then, she threw herself into the soft bed. Time passed slowly in the silence. Late at night, Fu Anran pushed aside the covers and slowly got up. Her movements were crisp and efficient, without any of the previous weakness or sluggishness. Her eyes gleamed with the stubborn light. She moved like a nimble cat, silently slipping upstairs, without turning on the lights, relying on her familiarity with the house. Avoiding possible lines of sight, she carefully made her way toward the attic. Fu Anran held her breath, her movements skilled. Finally arriving before the small door to the attic, it opened. What met her eyes was a wall. She stumbled and rushed to the wall. Her voice was broken, a hoarse roar. "Why are you doing this?" Her trembling palm slapped heavily onto the rough brick surface, again and again, carrying a nearly stubborn despair. But the dull pain coming from her fingertips felt like it fell on cotton. Unable to stir any sensation, "Miss is at the attic entrance. Quick!" Urgent footsteps came from various directions downstairs. The well-trained bodyguards quickly assembled towards the attic entrance. The first to arrive was a Fu Zizhu. He saw the scene before him. His heart ached with a pang. "Let me pass, I beg you." Her voice gradually weakened into sobs. Her body slowly slid down along the wall. Fu Zizhu stepped forward quickly, gently helped her up. discovered her palms were only slightly red. No obvious wounds. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. When Fu Tingai and others heard the noise and rushed over, they saw her slumped, sitting by the wall, her body trembling slightly, her face full of tear stains. Zhao Ran. Don't be like this. Fu Jinian's voice was choked with sobs. Fu Anran lifted her head, tears welling in her eyes, full of grievance and confusion. Why won't you even let me go here? Her voice carried deep sadness, but it was no longer the desperate roar from before. Fu Tingai crouched down. His gaze was full of heartache and self-reproach. Sorry. We were just worried about you. In the future, no matter what happens, you can tell your brothers. She turned her face away, muttering, I just wanted to go see. The trailing end of her words dissipated in the air, turning into a sigh. She said nothing more. Fu Zizhu held her and walked towards the bedroom, gently laying her on the soft, large bed. The doctor and nurse, who had long been waiting in the room, immediately stepped forward, carefully treating his swollen, red hands. At this moment, Fu Tingai crouched in front of him, self-reproach and heartache almost bursting through his chest. Sorry. We neglected your feelings. In the future, no matter what, tell your brothers. Fu Anran did not respond. She just lowered her eyelids. Her eyelashes still hung with undried teardrops. The moonlight outside the window spilled in, stretching her silhouette very long, casting an image of both stubbornness and fragility. This night, the lights in the Fu family villa stayed on for a long time. Her several brothers kept watch outside her room, their hearts filled with regret and heartache, secretly vowing to care more for their younger sister in the future. The daylight outside the window was already bright. The bright light made her blink, somewhat unaccustomed. Fu Anran opened her eyes again. Those eyes that were once full of stubbornness now seemed somewhat silent. It cannot reflect the bright lights overhead, nor can it reflect any figure by the bedside. She did not move. She just quietly stared at a certain point on the ceiling. Her gaze was as silent as a lake surface, long undisturbed by ripples. It could not reflect much light and shadow, nor could much emotion be seen in it. Her body felt unusually heavy. Even breathing carried a sense of weariness. Her throat was dry. From her stomach came waves of emptiness, a discomfort carrying a dull ache. But she did not react. Old Chen's hand, holding the test report, trembled slightly. His eyes behind his glasses were full of worry. Zhao Ran's electrolyte imbalance has already endangered her heart function. If we cannot supplement her nutrition within 24 hours, we must consider the next step. Fu Tingai's knuckles creased the edges of the report. Fu Jinian turned his back and wiped his face fiercely. The entire hospital room fell into a suffocating silence. Zhao Ran, you're awake. Fu Tingai's voice, suppressing excitement, sounded, carrying a trace of barely perceptible tension. How do you feel? Would you like some water? Are you hungry? Fu Anran did not even lift her eyelids. Her gaze remained fixed in the void, as if the voice was merely wind passing through the air, having nothing to do with her. Little sister. Third brother had the kitchen prepare bird's nest congee. It's especially fragrant. Have just a little bit. Fu Jinian's voice sounded immediately after, carrying a deliberately softened, coaxing tone, even tinged with a trace of caution. Responding to him was still silence. We can't gamble anymore. Fu Zizhu suddenly spoke. His voice was low, but each word was clear. The doctor said this is the only way to avoid organ failure. Fu Jinian rushed forward and grabbed his collar. Do you know how awful it is to have tubes inserted? Fu Zizhu countered by grasping his younger brother's trembling wrist. His Adam's apple bobbed twice. I know. But I'm more afraid of not hearing her heartbeat tomorrow. Fu Tingai's heart sank. His voice became extremely gentle. Zhao Ran, be good. Open your mouth. Eat a little. Your body needs to recuperate. Needs nutritional supplements. The spoon stayed by her lips for a long time, finally slid down with the grains of porridge, dripping onto the pure white bedsheet. Fu Anran's silent gaze still fixed on the ceiling, as if she hadn't heard it all, nor seen anything. Zhao Ran. Fu Jinian grew anxious. His voice choked with sobs. He suddenly slid down from the chair, knelt on one knee beside the hospital bed, his hands gripping the edge of the bed, looking up at Fu Anran's pale face. Her energy was rapidly depleting in this silent refusal. If this continues, the consequences are worrisome. Old Master Chen, there really is no other way. Fu Tingai stared at the faint, fluctuating line on the ECG monitor. His voice trembled. Old Chen shook his head heavily. Intubation now might still preserve her organ functions. No. We can't go on like this anymore. Fu Tingai suddenly slammed his fist against the cold wall. A dull thud sounded. His bloodshot eyes looked towards the bed, at the figure that seemed as if it could vanish at any moment. His voice was low, carrying a kind of worry born from being forced into a corner. She won't be able to hold on. She will. He turned to Old Chen, his eyes holding a final shred of hope. Old Chen. Really? Is there no other way? Medicine. Or? Old Chen shook his head heavily again, his face etched with deep exhaustion and helplessness. His gaze swept over the three anxious men by the bedside. Psychological counseling requires her willingness to speak. Right now, she has closed herself off. Physiological support is the most urgent matter. Physiological support. Fu Jinian murmured, repeating the words. His face pale. He looked at his sister's pallid face and silent expression. Overwhelming worry and self-reproach nearly drowning him. Does that mean we have to intubate her? No. That's too unbearable. She can't take it. He grabbed Old Chen's arm, his voice pleading. Old Chen. I'm begging you. Think of another way. I'm begging you. Fu Zizhu stood silently by the window, bearing the impact of all the chaos and worry. He watched his eldest brother's anxiety, watched his third brother's breakdown, watched his fourth brother's avoidance. Finally, his gaze fell heavily back upon the figure on the hospital bed. In his calm eyes, a resolve was silently gathering. It was a judgment made based on harsh reality. Maintaining vital signs must be the priority. He hesitated no longer, silently walked to the bedside. His tall figure cast a shadow. He did not look at Fu Tingai, nor did he look at Fu Jinian. His calm gaze rested on Fu Anran's face. Fu Jinian instinctively blocked him. Second brother, what are you doing? Don't do anything rash. Fu Zizhu didn't even glance at him, just repeated calmly, step aside. The weight in that voice made Fu Jinian involuntarily take a step back. Fu Zizhu took a deep breath, turned and nodded to the nurse. Let's begin. The nurse immediately unfolded the sterile drape, skillfully adjusted the length of the nasogastric tube. The doctor nearby stared intently at the monitor, ready to respond to any emergencies at any moment. Fu Zizhu showed no hesitation. He tilted his head slightly towards the door. Come in. 4 powerfully built bodyguards and a female nurse pushing a treatment cart quickly entered. Their expressions were serious and professional. The female nurse quickly prepared the disinfection items. Lubricant, a slender silicone soft tube, syringe, and specially formulated liquid nutrient solution. No, second brother. Don't. Fu Jinian, however, jumped up as if startled, wanting to stop Fu Zizhu, but ultimately stopped mid-air. Fu Zizhu's gaze swept over Fu Jinian's face. His voice was low and firm. Either watch or get out. Second brother. Let me try again. There must be a way. He tried to grab Fu Zizhu's arm. Fu Zizhu's voice was low but firm. Third brother. Believe me. Wait until she recovers her strength. She can hit me however she wants then. Fu Jinian stepped back, his eyes red, but still couldn't help muttering, "Be gentle. Don't hurt her." Fu Tinghai looked up at Fu Zizhu. His gaze was extremely complex, but in the end, he pressed his lips tightly together and did not stop him. Fu Zizhu stopped paying attention to the others. He bent down. His originally steady hand trembled slightly when it touched Fu Anran's jaw. He forced himself to use the gentlest pressure to adjust the position of her head. "Cooperate a bit. It will be over soon." His tone carried a hint of gentleness. What was he going to do? Fu Anran's gaze finally gained focus and landed on Fu Zizhu. The brothers hated her to the bone. When the girl leaped from the tall building, ending her brief 19 years, and woke up again, she had actually returned to the year she was 14. Why did heaven make her go through this hellish life once more? But the girl didn't know. Her inner thoughts were being heard word for word by the brothers at this very moment. Continued from the previous episode. What was he going to do? Fu Anran's gaze finally focused, landing on Fu Zizhu. "Miss Fu, please cooperate. This is to help you recover your health," the nurse softly reassured, her voice carrying a professional calmness. The 4 bodyguards nearby immediately stepped forward, their movements professional and efficient. They gently but firmly supported her body on both sides, preventing any accidental movement due to discomfort. "No, don't. Let go." Fu Anran instantly erupted with resistance, using every bit of strength she had just regained. She let out a weak sound of protest, but she was too weak. The nurse, meanwhile, worked deftly to measure the appropriate length for tube insertion, applying lubricant and anesthetic to the tip. Fu Anran looked at the nurse with resistance, her lips pressed tightly together. Fu Zizhu used his fingers, with a kind of necessary precision, gently adjusted the position of her nostrils. At the moment when she instinctively parted her lips slightly due to the change in posture, the nurse's technique was gentle yet precise. The silicone tube was quickly put into place under professional operation. Fu Anran instinctively frowned. After a brief fluctuation in heart rate on the monitor, the nurse immediately nodded. "Very good. The position is correct." Fu Zizhu's tense shoulders finally relaxed slightly. His gaze remained fixed on his sister's gradually steadying breathing. "Monitor blood oxygen. Prepare the antiemetic." The doctor spoke immediately. Fu Zizhu's fingers subconsciously tightened. Then he forced himself to relax. His eyes were fixed intently on the flashing numbers on the monitor. But her strength, even with support, seemed feeble. Fu Zizhu's hand cupping her jaw was as steady as a rock. His gaze was calm, maintaining necessary attention to her pained resistance. He only ensured her head position remained stable, facilitating the nurse's procedure. As the tube was inserted, she instinctively flinched. The monitor's alarm sounded briefly. Then, under the nurse's skilled handling, it returned to a regular pattern. "It feels so awful." Fu Zizhu's fingers, cupping her jaw, gently stroked once, like an unconscious comfort. This action caused Fu Anran's struggle to pause slightly. The heart rate curve on the monitor briefly flattened. He continued to watch the nurse's actions intently. Only using the back of his other hand's fingers, he brushed them against her tear-dampened temple. The tube finally reached the predetermined position. The nurse quickly secured the tube. "Connect the syringe." Warm liquid nutrition was slowly, steadily pushed into her stomach. The flow rate of the nutritional solution is normal. Vital signs are stable. The nurse's voice slightly eased the tense atmosphere. Fu Zizhu's tense shoulders finally relaxed, but he still didn't dare to look away. Fu Tinghai turned his face away in pain. Fu Jinian, to the side, covered his mouth tightly. Tears gushed out. In the corner, Fu Yongxiu wore headphones, burying himself in an isolated world. Fu Zizhu remained as steady as ever. He stood by the bed, like the most solid pillar, quietly watching the nurse's movements. The nurse gently wiped the cold sweat from Fu Anran's forehead, leaned close to her ear and whispered, Rest well. Once your strength recovers, we can talk slowly. Fu Zizhu took the warm towel, carefully wiped the tear stains from her face. His movements were gentler than ever before. After the procedure was completed, the nurse immediately offered warm water to moisten her throat, whispering reassurance. It's normal to feel uncomfortable the first time. You'll feel better after some rest. Fu Anran was still breathing somewhat weakly, but when she glimpsed Fu Zizhu's tightly clenched, whitened fists, her heart inexplicably trembled. Fu Zizhu locked eyes with her for a long time. His Adam's apple moved. In the end, he just said in a low voice, "As long as you are alive, it doesn't matter how much you hate me." He deftly took the warm towel handed by the nurse, carefully, gently wiped away the tears and traces of discomfort from her face. His movements carried a necessary calmness. Then, he straightened up. His gaze swept over everyone in the hospital room, finally landing on Fu Anran. His voice fell clearly and steadily. "We will wait for you to speak up voluntarily every day. But before that, for your health, we have to do this." After speaking, he turned and strode out of the room. The atmosphere in the villa was heavy. Fu Tingai sat on the sofa opposite Fu Anran, looking at his sister's thin profile and silent eyes. His heart tightened. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something. It ultimately turned into a sigh. Fu Jinian, with red-rimmed eyes, crouched beside Fu Anran's feet, holding one of her cold hands, hoarsely murmured, "Zhao Ran, please, eat a little. Just a little bit, okay?" Fu Anran showed no reaction. Just then, the bedroom door was pushed open. Fu Zizhu's tall figure appeared in the doorway, followed by bodyguards and a nurse carrying an equipment case. His calm gaze swept over the completely untouched meal tray on the side table, then swept over Fu Anran on the sofa, finally landing on the faces of Fu Tingai and Fu Jinian. Without any unnecessary words, he tilted his head slightly, gave a signal. "No, wait. Second brother. Wait a little longer." Fu Jinian suddenly jumped up, spread his arms and blocked in front of Fu Anran. His face carried a plea. "Give me a little more time. I can definitely persuade her to eat something." Fu Zizhu's gaze was calm. He stepped forward, firmly parried Fu Jinian's blocking arm. He didn't even look at Fu Jinian. His gaze fell on Fu Anran. Old Chen said her blood potassium levels have dropped again. Fu Zizhu's voice carried suppressed anxiety. "After this is over, we will contact the best psychologist." A few calm words declared the procedure's resumption. Bodyguards and nurses quickly stepped forward, their movements skilled. Wu Anran's weak resistance seemed powerless under restraint. Intense resistance surged within her heart. Her bloodshot eyes stared fixedly at Fu Zizhu. The soft tube was inserted again. The intense foreign body sensation and nausea made her body tremble. Tears gushed out. "Don't be afraid. It will be over soon." Fu Zizhu leaned down, whispered in her ear, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. These unexpected words made Fu Anran struggle pause for a moment. The heart rate on the monitor showed a subtle change. Right at this moment, filled with coercion and discomfort. At the bedroom door, the hurried voice of Thebitler Jiang Bo came through. "Young master, Mr. C is here to visit." He has already arrived in the small reception room. Before the butler could finish speaking, a tall, slender, and noble figure appeared at the open bedroom door. Si Yihan was wearing a perfectly tailored dark gray overcoat. His posture was upright. His face wore his usual composed, faint smile. However, when his deep, phoenix-like eyes swept across the scene inside the room, 4 bodyguards were supporting an extremely thin young girl. A soft tube was being carefully handled by a nurse. Her eyes were full of resistance. The perfect smile on Si Yihan's face instantly froze, like a stone suddenly thrown into calm water. The air in the bedroom was heavy and suffocating. Cold instruments, a frail body forcibly restrained, and a woman filled with overwhelming hatred in her eyes, and that tube symbolizing humiliation and absolute control. All of this was clearly imprinted in Si Yun's abruptly constricted pupils, the elegant and composed demeanor on his face, that faint smile as if forever in control of the situation. Like porcelain encountering a cold snap, instantly stiffened and shattered. The position of his heart was sharply pierced by an invisible needle, bringing a sudden, sharp stabbing pain and an extremely unfamiliar feeling of suffocation. He had seen too much darkness, too many dirty deals, too many souls twisted under the pressure of power. Death and suffering, to him, were merely bargaining chips at the negotiation table and obstacles to be eliminated. But the scene before him, a pale, fragile girl, like a glass doll that could shatter at any moment, being force-fed like an object without will. Those bloodshot eyes, burning with humiliation and deep-seated hatred, actually made him feel a trace of piercing coldness. This coldness was not fear, but something deeper and more unfamiliar, like ice water flooding over his heart. He almost instinctively wanted to step forward, to wave his hand and make those rough hands stop. But the next second, that deeply ingrained, the calm of a top predator and an almost cruel degree of self-control, instantly killing this impulse. The perfect mask-overs over again. Si Yihun only slightly raised his brow, as if he had merely witnessed a slightly abrupt theatrical scene. He even maintained that faint, almost imperceptible curve at the corner of his lips. Only the warmth deep in his eyes had completely dropped to freezing point. Like the depths of a cold, deep pool, he stood quietly at the door, like a detached spectator, silently watching as the medical team completed those cold and highly efficient procedures. The tube was pulled out. Violent retching sounds tore through the air. The girl lay limp on the bed, as if completely drained of her last bit of vitality. Only silent tears remained, sliding down, and that gaze fixed on Fu Ziju like a poisoned dagger. The nurse tidied up the instruments, quickly and silently retreat, until only heavy panting and deathly silence remained in the room. Si Yihun seemed to finally snap back to reality. His gaze calmly swept past Fu Tingai, whose face was livid with anger, past Fu Jinian, who looked utterly broken and distraught, past Fu Yongxiu, curled up in a corner wearing headphones, finally landing on Fu Anran on the bed, whose face was ashen like a corpse. It seems, his deep, pleasant voice sounded, breaking the suffocating silence, carrying a trace of just the right amount of seemingly detached regret. Miss Fu's physical condition is even more worrying than I imagined. His tone was composed. Not a hint of the turbulence from that fleeting moment earlier could be detected. Fu Tingai suddenly looked up. No one knew when he had. Si Yihun's figure hassle-ready appeared at the door. Scarlet eyes fixed intently on Si Yihun, chest heaving violently. The last shred of the Fu family head's composure was almost destroyed by fury. He walked over to Si Yihun in a few steps. His tall figure carried an immense sense of oppression. His voice was low and hoarse from extreme anger and the shame of having the most unsightly family disgrace exposed. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. Director C. Barging in without permission. Isn't that inappropriate? Fu Tingai tried his best to restrain his anger, maintaining the image of the family head. His tone carried accusation. Fu Jinian, like a lit firecracker, charged over abruptly, tear stains still wet on her face. Yet her eyes were filled with offended anger and humiliation. You see, you fucking want to watch the show? Get the hell back to your own place to watch it. This is the Fu family. You are not welcome here. Fu Ziju did not move. He still stood not far from Fu Anran. He just slowly, quietly watched everything. Those hawk-like, icy eyes, precisely locked onto Si Yihun. No furious aura emanated from him. Yet a substantial, bloody killing intent silently spread, instantly dropping the temperature of the entire space. He did not speak, but the warning and intent to expel in his eyes were more threatening than any roar. In the corner, Fu Yongxiu finally took off his headphones. Those hollow eyes under the brim of his hat, through thick lenses, fixed deathly on Si Yihan. His fingers unconsciously tightened on the edge of the keyboard, knuckles turning white, facing the overwhelming fury of the Fu brothers and their undisguised hostility. Si Yihan merely elegantly adjusted his overcoat cuff. The curve at the corner of his lips even deepened slightly, carrying a kind of almost cruel composure. President Fu Jinian, why such great anger? His voice was steady, as if discussing the weather. Jiang Bo said President Fu was upstairs. I just dropped by to say hello while passing through. And also, to inquire about Miss Fu's condition. After all, his gaze meaningfully swept over once more. Fu Anran lay lifeless on the sofa. Miss Fu's current appearance is truly unbearable to witness. Unbearable to witness. Fu Tingai laughed in extreme anger, his gaze sharp as a blade. Since when has Director C's heart become so soft? Fu Tingai's tone was laced with sarcasm. President Fu, hearsay is not to be believed. I am not a cold-blooded animal. My heart is quite soft too. Especially when seeing a pitiful and endearing little creature. Si Yihan's gaze fell upon Fu Anran, his tone carrying a note of teasing. Director C, mind your words. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing any mercy. His final warning carried an indisputable and resolute tone. The smile on Si Yihan's face faded slightly. His gaze became profound and inscrutable. He did not immediately refute Fu Tingai's accusation, nor did he forcibly stay. He was no benevolent gentleman or devout follower. A luxury like compassion. He had long discarded it on the bloody path to the pinnacle of power. But this young girl before him, the intense, utter despair and lifelessness she exuded, along with the sense of humiliation from being forcibly kept alive, like a distorted mirror, faintly reflected some things he thought had long been completely buried, belonging to the past, blurred and icy fragments. A mad, even somewhat illogical thought suddenly took shape in his mind, abandoned as if by experience. Face. Si Yihan repeated softly. His voice lowered a few degrees, carrying a peculiar rhythm. President Fu, things like face. Between us, perhaps not. But he changed the subject. His gaze shifted away from Fu Anran, slowly swept over the four men before him, who looked like they were facing a great enemy. His eyes held a sharpness that saw through everything, and a trace of imperceptible interest. What if I said, can I get her to open her mouth and eat? Her brothers hated her to the bone. When the girl leaped from the tall building, ending her brief 19 years, waking up again, she had actually returned to when she was 14. Why did heaven make her go through this hellish life again? But the girl didn't know. Her inner thoughts were being heard word for word by her brothers right now. Continued from the previous episode. Si Yihan's single sentence made the whole room explode instantly. This sentence was simply a bolt from the blue. The rage on eldest brother Fu Tingai's face instantly froze, his eyes full of disbelief. How is this possible? They had exhausted all methods. Their younger sister still refused to eat or drink. How could he? Immediately after, third brother Fu Jinian was as if struck by lightning, screaming out loud. What do you mean? You can get Zhao Ran to eat? What a joke. You don't even know what she likes to eat. Liar. He must be a liar, trying to use Zhao Ran. But what if? What if he really? Fu Jinian's heart was torn by contradiction. However, second brother Fu Ziju's icy eyes suddenly flickered, shooting sharply towards Si Yihan. That gaze seemed to see right through him. If there was another way, even the slightest possibility. What is the price? This was Fu Ziju's only thought. Even the calmest fourth brother, Fu Yongxiu in the corner, lifted his head, staring fixedly at him. But the eldest brother suppressed his fury. His voice, bone-chillingly cold. Why should I believe you? My sister is not your bargaining chip. Yet Si Yihan simply smiled calmly, his gaze turning once more to the desperate girl on the bed. He slowly spoke, his voice carrying a heart-palpitating heaviness. Because she and I are the same kind of people. The taste of despair. I have tasted it. These words instantly caused the Fu brothers' pupils to tremble violently. But that wasn't all. Yihan dropped another bombshell. Not only can I make her eat, I can also make her accept treatment. But he met the four pairs of eyes, some shocked, some doubtful, some wary, and clearly stated his demand. Let me stay alone with her for a while. Half an hour. No need for any of you to be present. No surveillance of any kind. At this, the air in the living room completely froze. Impossible. Fu Tingai didn't even think about it. Flatly refused. Si Yihan, don't even think about it. I will never let you approach Zhao Ren alone. Fu Jinian also instantly bristled, like a fierce beast protecting its young. What do you want to do? If you dare to lay a finger on Zhao Ren, I'll fight you to the death. The next second, an icy killing intent erupted from Fu Ziju's entire body. His eyes seemed to say, if you dare take one step across the line, death. But facing this overwhelming hostility, Si Yihan actually laughed. Within that smile, there was a trace of pity and mockery. However, Si Yihan just calmly retorted, what could I possibly do? This is, after all, in your Fu family. The next second, his sharp gaze swept over the four men. One sentence, like a poison-tipped blade, precisely stabbed into their most painful spot. In her eyes, you and I aren't much different. We are just people who, in different ways, pushed her towards the abyss. But Si Yihan's heart was also surging with huge waves, because he heard the girl's inner voice. In her memories, he too had been one of those who hurt her. What exactly had that former him done? He no longer looked at their changing expressions, turned around, and walked elegantly towards the door. When he reached the door, his steps paused slightly. He did not look back, only left a final sentence. The choice is yours, to continue using tubes to maintain this walking corpse, or gamble on a possibility of making her speak again. He let out a very soft, unclear, mocking laugh. I just suddenly thought, letting these beautiful eyes be completely extinguished is a bit of a pity. As his words fell, Si Yihan's figure completely disappeared, leaving only four men. Pushed to the edge of the cliff, Fu Tingai's face was ashen, his fists clenched until they creaked. Gamble? Bet a sister on an outsider's. But if they don't gamble, should they just watch her wither away? Fu Jinian was even more distraught. He slumped to the ground. Yes, a stranger, perhaps, could truly shatter that layer of solid ice. This thought sent chills all over his body. At the same time, Fu Ziju remained silent, but the gaze fixed on the doorway was boiling with killing intent, and Fu Yongxiu was frantically searching through all of Si Yihan's past information. To gamble or not to gamble, this devilish choice plunged the entire Fu family into dead silence. Meanwhile, Si Yihan leaned back in the car seat and suddenly closed his eyes. But the scene of that girl being force-fed played back wildly in his mind. Her pale face, cracked lips, the cold tube, like a venomous snake probing into her throat. In those bloodshot eyes, there was no fear, only overwhelming hatred and humiliation intense enough to burn everything to ashes. A suppressed groan escaped his throat. Si Yihan's eyes snapped open. In his usually calm gaze, A trace of icy irritation actually flashed past. Why could this girl so intensely stir the long frozen, stagnant water within him? Was the despair in her eyes too familiar? Or did that humiliation of being forcibly kept alive pry open that door in his heart, the one sealed with endless bloodshed? In a daze, the light and shadows outside the car window began to distort. Everything before his eyes rapidly faded of color. Then, a more distant, a more bloody scene suddenly replaced reality. It was a winter night when he was 6 years old. In the fireplace of the C family manor, the fire was blazing. However, the air was filled with a nauseatingly thick smell of blood. Little him hid behind the curtain, covering his mouth tightly. A pair of obsidian-like eyes widened to their limit, leaving only terror. He saw his father lying in a pool of blood, his expensive suit soaked through with blood, a dagger stabbed into his chest. He also saw his mother, that gentle mother, like a butterfly with broken wings, lying beside his father. Her beautiful white nightgown dyed a blinding crimson. The next second, a few, usually amiable, uncle, wiping hands with a blood-stained handkerchief. On their faces were ferocious and greedy smiles. Big brother, big sister-in-law, don't blame us for being cruel-hearted. If you must blame someone, blame yourselves for blocking everyone's path. Where is that little brat? Deal with it cleanly. Leave no loose ends. The icy words drilled into his ears. Immense fear instantly seized him. He didn't know how he escaped, only remembered running desperately. Behind him were life-seeking demons. He didn't dare look back, could only charge toward the pitch-black forest deep within the estate, fleeing for his life. Then, he was sent to a place called Sacred Heart Orphanage. A place. This name that sounds so full of hope. But it is a hell more desperate than death. Here, hunger was merely the most trivial of sufferings. Moldy black bread, sour-tasting thin porridge, never enough to fill the stomach. But soon, he realized this was only the beginning. Even more terrifying was the solitary confinement cell. A dark space located in the basement, less than 2 square meters, no windows, only a heavy iron door. The air was foul. Time lost all meaning. Only his own frantic heartbeat and dying breath. Hunger, cold, fear, gnawed at his will like maggots. He even began to hallucinate. The cold walls transformed into the corpses of his parents, who had died tragically, and the deepest darkness, hidden in health checkup. Afterwards, every so often, there would be strangers wearing expensive clothes who came. They used adoption as a pretext to select children, and he was once chosen. The cold stethoscope pressed against his chest. The strange man's scrutinizing gaze was as if appraising an object. Even, he caught in the other's eyes that faint, noticeable satisfaction. Immediately after, he was told to step onto the cold weighing scale. Not only that, he was ordered to take off his shirt, revealing a scrawny back covered in old and new scars. That hand actually pressed wantonly against his ribs, like appraising the quality of a piece of goods. A cold voice, as if pronouncing a verdict. Number A7. Rare blood type. Organ health. High potential value. Key points. At that moment, he completely understood. He is not human. He is just a price tag. Organ containers waiting to be harvested. Instantaneously, fear and hatred froze all the blood in his body. He stared fixedly at Thedian's obsequious face, staring dead into Thatman's cold, indifferent eyes. Them deeply branded in Toth bone marrow. He wants to survive. He wants to make these people pay 1,000-fold price. Just like that, He struggled in this hell for another 2 full years. Every day. It's all torment. Habitual stomach spasms, fear of the morbid darkness, intense aversion to unfamiliar males. These traumas deeply engraved into his soul. Till, a stormy late night, he stole a table knife. He actually pried open that rusted iron lock that had never been pried open before. He is like a fierce young wolf, with overwhelming hatred, rush into the storm, escaped from the city called Sacred Heart, the human hell. However, return to the sea family. Yet there is no harbor, only colder, more brutal power struggles. The enemy who killed my parents. The family property has long been divided. Regard him as a thorn in one's flesh. At this very moment, an obscure old gardener, he actually risked his life to take him in. So, daytime, he pretends to be a dirty, foolish grandson, enduring the wanton beatings and insults from the enemy's lackeys, like the most despicable stray dog. But when night falls, he is in the basement, frantically devouring knowledge, old newspaper, business magazine, law books. That old gardener became his only guide in the darkness. From now on, he learned to endure silently, bury the hatred deep within. He learned to observe, find everyone's weakness. He even learned to utilize, sow the seeds of suspicion among enemies. The torment of the welfare institution. It actually became his strongest weapon. Fear of darkness. It became his best cover. Rejection of males. Even more twisted into a sharp tool that sees through the dark side of human nature. 10 years. For a full 10 years. When he appeared again. No longer that chilled at the mercy of others. But a blade. The sword of vengeance sempemped in hell. The evidence he presented. Enough to send all enemies to hell. Dirty deal. Cannibal welfare institution. One after another. One by one. Stir up a monstrous wave. He didn't give anyone a chance. Mastermind. Died mysteriously in prison. Death condition. Exactly the same as his father back in the day. Accomplice. Sent to a mental hospital. There, they would rather die than live. And those family parasites, deprived of everything, reduced to a stray dog. But this is not over yet. And that Dean, Si Yihun personally went to the old site of that welfare home. No one knows what happened that night. Only knowing a few days later, suburban landfill, a body gnawed by wild dogs was discovered. Beside the corpse, it's a piece of a blood-stained priest's robe. There is also a yellowed label. It was written in bold, number 7. From now on, blood washes away the past. Also reshaped him. The C family is under his control. Ruthless methods. With the power of a thunderbolt and the speed of lightning, he built an even larger business empire. And build a wall of the heart that shuts out all warmth. At this moment, in the study of the mid-levels estate, Si Yihun stood in front of the window, holding a glass of strong liquor, his fingers gently stroking below the collarbone. There's a ferocious old scar. That is the mark of shame left by the dean. Suddenly, a name surfaced in his mind. Little monster. He whispered coldly, Fu Anran, are you a little monster too? Her despair, her misanthropy. Like a mirror, reflecting the abyss in which he had once sunk. At this very moment, a knocking sound was heard. Come in. The assistant walked in silently, handing over a sandalwood box. President. What you want? Si Yihun opened. Inside was an exquisite silver pocket watch. But the next second, the assistant's phone suddenly rang. A moment later, he returned to Si Yihun's side. President. Fox sighed. Have a reply. Si Yihun was playing with the pocket watch. Without looking back, The assistant reported word by word. The Fu family said. Tomorrow at p.m. Half an hour. No surveillance. Just this once. See Yihan's lips. A cold, slow R gradually curves. He put the pocket watch back into the box. Strong liquor in the cup. Drained in one gulp. Spicy and burning throat. Yet it cannot warm that ice-sealed heart. Because he knows. The desert in Fu and Ran's eyes. That one who crawled out from the abyss. Little monster. Like him. With a dangerous and mysterious aura. And he. To personally ignite it.